My guess is that he greatly fears, and I think he's correct in this, that he's going to lose unless he can break the will of the Western democracies to continue supplying Ukraine. And this is his way of doing it. There is, however, a non-zero possibility, Hugh, that he's going to use tactical nuclear weapons. This is why you want to deter kinetic conflict. And as you and I have discussed, you can't deter kinetic conflict with economic tools, particularly when you're economically dependent on the aggressor, right? So maybe we really should have maintained a strong force posture in Eastern Europe and sent the right signals to him. So I agree with what Robert O'Brien put in the article. You have to prepare to escalate in the conventional domain and impose costs and consequences on him that will make him regret a decision like that. And then I would just say publicly that. I mean, I would not get into specifics at all, but I would just say, look, if he does that, he's going to suffer costs and consequences, and we're going to teach him a lesson. I would also strongly, if we have any solid intel that he's really considering it, I'd pass it along to the Chinese back channel because I don't think they want him to do that. And I think they still have some influence with him.
Senator Talent, thank you for being here. What do we know about the Russian system for authorization of nuclear weapons, either tactical or strategic? There's been, do we know whether or not this is a decision that is fully within Putin's hands? Is there a process by which maybe we can hope that rational minds will prevail in this process, or is it just too corrupt and Putin's the only guy with his hand on the button?
Well, I think you have to assume when you're dealing with Russia that whatever the formal, it's a secure system, I should say. It's not like a rogue state where somebody might take control of it, some outside faction, and use it. So from everything we know, it's a secure system. I think you have to assume that regardless of what the formal procedure is, that he has control because he's good at exercising control over his own security and his own military apparatus. I mean, he's maneuvered very effectively to do that. So I think we have to act on the assumption that if he is determined to do it, that he can do it, and so that therefore he is the one that we have to deter. Well, of course, we could hope that something would happen within the Russian hierarchy if he really signaled he was going to do it.
So in terms of what Robert O'Brien wrote, Senator Talent, he suggested that Joe Biden or Tony Blinken actually articulate what would follow as day follows night, to steal the phrase from Eisenhower. What do you make about that? Because I've heard nothing from anyone in the Biden administration about what they would do were a tactical nuclear weapon to be used on the battlefield in Ukraine.
Yeah, I'd prefer that publicly we make clear that we will respond using any and all means that we think appropriate. I agree with what Robert said and what Mike Pompeo said on the show. I think it was last Friday, that you get the list ready, that if he uses it, you execute. I think Pompeo said, that's not the time for planning, that's the time for execution. But I'm always reluctant, particularly in the nuclear sphere, to talk about specifics. Because in a sense, that limits your options, right? If you say this is what we will do, then the aggressor thinks, well, they won't do anything else. So I would prefer to be clear that we will respond powerfully, but not to get into specifics.
Senator Talent, how much does European reluctance to provide that sort of explicit deterrent play into this as well? I mean, it's not just the U.S. here. We're also talking about working in concert with a number of allies on the European continent.
Yeah, it's a good question, Ed, and I think that's the challenge with NATO. But this is where you need leadership, okay? And it would have been helpful if we had not had almost 18 months of weakness and indecision and incompetence in terms of executing important foreign and national security initiatives, i.e. Afghanistan. But we should be working with the NATO allies right now, discussing what menu of options and responses they will support and should support in that kind of an instance. And so, you want to do it through NATO, particularly in Europe. You almost, I think, have to, but you got to work with the allies in doing it, and we need to be doing that right now.
Quick one, Senator Talent. Do you trust the Germans to stay in the game? They're back in. They've been in and out, in and out, in and out this week. They're back in. Do you trust them to stay in?
I trust him about as much as Rick Brunel trusts him. What do you think about that?
Ha! For those who know, that's not very much. Jim Talent trusts him as much as I trust the Steelers fans.